Welcome to Hearts on the Frontier, where we bring you powerful, emotional, and true to the spirit stories from the American Old West. Settle in and ride back with me into a time when danger waited behind every canyon, legends were born without warning, and one man's courage could change a life forever. Today's story is about a cowboy who stumbled onto something he never expected, a young Apache girl hanging from a tree, left to die. He didn't know her. He didn't know who put her there. But what happened after he cut her down would follow him for the rest of his life. Late afternoon sunlight burned gold across the New Mexico territory. Heat shimmered off the sand. The sky stretched wide and empty, the kind of sky that made a man feel small no matter how many miles he'd ridden. Colt Maddox, a cowboy known for keeping to himself, rode across the desert with only the sound of his horse dust and the low whistle of the wind to keep him company. Colt wasn't the kind of man who looked for trouble, but he knew trouble when it was coming, long before he could see it. That day, something felt wrong. Dust slowed on her own, ears pointing toward a ravine filled with crooked juniper trees. Colt listened. At first, nothing but silence. Then, something faint, a crack, a creak, and another sound, soft and painful, like someone trying not to cry. Colt dismounted and moved carefully through the trees. The shadows made it hard to see until he stepped closer, and then his whole body went rigid. There, hanging from a thick branch, was a girl. Young, maybe 14, maybe a little older. She wasn't hanging by her neck but by her wrists, tied tightly above her head with coarse rope digging into her skin. Her feet dangled inches above the ground, and her arms trembled helplessly from exhaustion. Her long black hair was tangled with dust, and her face was streaked with dry tears. Colt felt anger rise inside him, not the hot, reckless kind, but the cold, steady kind that made a man dangerous. He rushed forward, pulled out his knife, and cut the rope just before she lost consciousness completely. He caught her in his arms and laid her gently in a shaded patch of grass. Her wrists were bleeding. One ankle was bruised badly. Her breathing was shallow. Colt lifted her head and held his canteen to her lips. She flinched but drank a little before her eyes fluttered open. For a moment, she looked at him, not really seeing him, but searching for safety. Then she slipped back into unconsciousness. He didn't know who she was, but he knew exactly what had happened. Conflict between settlers and Apache tribes had been intensifying, and outlaws used that chaos as cover to commit crimes darker than most folks would believe. Someone had left this girl to die slow. Colt couldn't, and wouldn't, leave her there. He hoisted her onto dust and rode toward an abandoned line cabin he'd passed earlier. As the sun dipped behind the mesas, Colt brought her inside, made a fire, and cleaned her wounds. When she stirred again, she whispered something he didn't understand, "Nanton," and then fell asleep once more. Colt didn't sleep at all. Near midnight, he heard horses. 3 of them. He stood, gun drawn, as the door shoved open. An outlaw stepped in, and Colt struck him fast, dropping him to the floor. Another lunged. They wrestled in the dirt until Colt slammed him into the ground. A shot blasted through the broken window, causing Colt to dive behind a table. He fired back, hitting the gunman outside in the arm. The girl woke with a terrified scream. That scream changed everything. Distracted, the outlaw stumbled. Colt fired again, forcing the man to drop his gun and flee into the dark. Colt tied up the 2 men unconscious on the floor and rushed to the girl, kneeling beside her, speaking softly to calm her. When she finally found her voice, her words came in broken English. "Men, kill my family. Take me, I run. They find. Tie me." Colt felt a weight he couldn't shake settle in his chest. The West was harsh, but this was something worse. "What's your name?" he asked. "Tallulah," she whispered. "And the word you said earlier?" "Nanton." She hesitated, then said softly, "My father." "Chief." Colt froze. She wasn't just any Apache girl. She was the daughter of a chief. And if the Apache found him with her, they might assume the worst. But Colt had already made his choice. He wouldn't leave her. Not to outlaws. Not to the desert. Not to fate. At sunrise, they rode toward the mountains, the most likely place her people would be. Tallulah leaned against him, exhausted but stronger than she'd been the night before. As they rode, she told him her story. Outlaws had stolen horses from their camp. Her father wanted to talk peacefully, but the men ambushed them instead. Tallulah escaped, but they hunted her, captured her, and tied her to that tree as a warning. Colt listened, jaw tight. Hours later, the mountain shadows stretched long, and Colt spotted figures watching from the ridge above. Apache warriors, armed, silent, watching. Tallulah straightened on the saddle and called out to them in her language. They rode down fast, surrounding Colt. He raised his hands. He knew how this could go. Then one warrior stepped forward, tall, strong, with feathers braided into his hair. His face softened the moment he saw Tallulah. He rushed to her, lifted her from the horse, and held her tightly. Colt watched the reunion in silence, relieved but wary. He expected anger, accusation, maybe worse. Tallulah spoke quickly, pointing at him, explaining everything in detail. The warrior, her uncle, turned to Colt. A long moment passed, then he placed a hand on Colt's shoulder. "You saved her," he said in accented English. "You saved the daughter of our chief." Colt simply nodded. "Anyone would've." "No," the warrior said firmly. "Not anyone." Tallulah stepped beside him, her eyes filled with gratitude. "You brave man," she whispered. "You good man." Colt tipped his hat, trying not to show the emotion tugging at his chest. "You take care of yourself," he said. He mounted dust. Tallulah called after him, her voice stronger now. "You will always be friend of my people." Colt didn't turn around, but a small smile pulled at the corner of his mouth as he rode off into the open land again. The desert wind followed him, carrying the quiet truth that his life had just changed, maybe more than he realized. He had saved her without knowing who she was. He had protected her without expecting anything in return. And he rode away with something far more powerful than reward, a bond earned in the harsh heart of the frontier. Thank you for watching Hearts on the Frontier. If this story moved you, inspired you, or kept you on the edge of your seat, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. More powerful tales from the Old West are on the way. Until next time, stay safe, ride true, and keep your heart on the frontier.